By the way,
just started.
you're wearing a company T-shirt, right? Like,
yeah.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. I changed on my wife's guidance. You know, she's like, you should probably wear a rep T-shirt.
Okay, it's great.
Good idea.
That's best way to promote your company.
Yeah, yeah. And
I've
been trying to get the camera to, you know, like get it.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Great,
Cool.
great. Yeah. So yeah, so I just started to record, and I guess we have 7 questions, right? Let me check. Maybe I sent a little bit more questions in the email.
You sent 10 in total. 3 general and 7 focus.
Ah, yeah. Okay. Tejin, did we add the general questions as well in the Q sheet? We actually have a Q sheet, you know, for our record. And
how many questions did you send? Q?
10 in total.
Oh, then we should add the general questions.
Yeah, I think we just missed the general questions. 3 general questions for Miguel. Would you mind adding them?
Yeah. I'll add one real quick.
Cool. Great. And Miguel, we are taking turns to ask questions, and because we are using the automatic transcriptions by Zoom for our video editing, so we are inserting kind of indexing cues like question number one for our own purpose, our convenience.
Yeah. We should have used Rev live captions. I should have told you.
You know, yeah. So Rev also has a app on Zoom, right?
Yeah. Which it's one of the things I was going to mention during the interview.
Okay, great.
But yeah, we do.
Is it it's not default one? So this automatic transcription provided by Zoom as a default, is it from your company or different company?
It's from a different company, yeah. So we offer ours through the Zoom marketplace. Yeah.
I see. Then maybe we need to install the app on top of Zoom so that Zoom can run the.
Yeah, we would have had to use my Zoom account. Like that would have been easier, I guess. But it's okay. Yeah. You could also install it. Like if you're curious, you can install it.
Yeah.
So just like a Microsoft Teams, Zoom is trying to turn their company into some kind of platform, so that like companies can join and sell their API, right? Seems like that's happening right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think we are pretty much ready to start, right, Tejin?
Let me 147.
Anything?
2, 5, 8. There's in total there are 10 questions, right?
10, right? Should be.
Yeah. I'll take up Dimitri's part, so you can go with your 147. Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha. And in between, we may ask some just informal questions to follow up the answers. So yeah, just in case. Do not be surprised by that.
Sounds good. I'm not prepared.
Yeah, just some informal. But this is just an informal conversation type of interview, so you don't need to be stressed out. And we can just edit. We don't have any plan to use the entire video without any editing. So. Yeah, so just feel free to talk anything. We can chop them up if we need to. If you feel like there is some need.
Sounds good.
Yep. Okay, so let's start. We can dive into this focused question first, and there is some general questions later in the stage. Okay, so let's start. Let me start first. Question number one. Rev.com's speech API boasts quality transcription services that customers need. What industry sectors are your major target areas? How do your customers leverage your company's products for their business?
Yeah, so we tackle many sectors, but the main three I would say is education, technology companies, and media companies. The use cases range from many different use cases, but some customers, they leverage the final transcript just as its own deliverable, let's say like a meeting transcript or podcast transcript, things like that, which I guess I would call, things like podcast transcript media company. But some other, they use the transcript to extract information, more information, and use the words and the results from the transcripts down in their products. And so things like public speaking training, or even things like interviews, like if you have interviews, you can kind of study what the person is saying during the interview. And then there are tech companies. Well, tech companies will use the technology in many different ways, but some of the favorite ones are like market research and user research kind of analysis. And then one way education now is kind of booming, of course, because everybody's stuck working from home and studying from home. So there are like customers that use streaming API, like live captions on Zoom and things like that. Yeah.
Great, thanks for the answer. So I think this pandemic situation can is opening up another opportunities for companies like Rev, right?
Yeah, we've seen definitely more opportunities to use ASR, and so Rev already does subtitling, captioning, and transcription in general. So captioning, live captioning was kind of a natural thing for us to jump on, and so certainly the conditions right now are making it so that it's the obvious market to kind of tackle right now. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
I think we just finished question number one. I think we're going to move on to the next question. The next question is about the differentiation of Revs.com's system from other competitors. Question number two. What are the most notable features differentiating Rev.com's technology from competitors in the market?
I'll say we don't try to do too much. So what differentiates us is accuracy and ease of use. And so we really we're very good at focusing our energy on a single task. And in the past few years, we've more or less focused on English ASR, and we try to make it extremely accurate. And we've tested ourselves over and over, and we're very happy with the results. But the other thing is ease of use. So it's very easy to sign up on rev.ai and get an API key and just start using the product right away.
So does it support real-time ASR with online diarization, things like that?
It supports, so yeah, there are definitely other features. So in the online use case, it doesn't support diarization yet. In the offline, we support diarization. We have some sort of post-processing for punctuation and all those kind of normal features that most people offer. But in the online use case, it's definitely something we are working on to work on online diarization.
I have a really short question. Like you said that you're trying to make it like easier for the customers. Like what aspects are you concerned about when it comes to easy of use of the API?
Without naming other companies, many companies will force you to like upload the audios, like they'll force you to use kind of like all of their ecosystem, let's say, to like upload the audio and stuff like that. Our API is just, you send the audio and you get the transcript. Yeah, so it's we try to make it as easy as possible for small developer teams to get speech recognition up and running. And we've had that feedback many times where people will say, "Oh, I was up and running in 20 minutes."
That's great.
Yeah, I think Taejin, just for our information, in the conversation we already covered the question number 4, so maybe we can skip that.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Like I'm gonna extract through because we talked about just and Miguel shared the status of online diarization at rev.com, and yeah, it's already covered with that. We don't need to have the question number 4 in the context.
Okay.
Yeah.
And we move on to the third question. So third question is about the domains that rev.com system deals with. Question number three. How many different domain types are processed in the platform? How is speakerization used in rev.com system?
Right. So I never counted the number of domains. What I usually describe what rev.com, like the type of problem we face is speaker diarization in the wild kind of thing. So it's we don't necessarily know or what to expect from our customers. They'll just send us all sorts of audios, and so there are dozens of different domains, I would call them maybe, but like I said earlier, I think tech, media, and education are the main ones, but they're domain like medical domains or law and things like that. And speakerization it's part of our output, so it's kind of used the same way as our ASR output in many ways. So in some cases, like in the podcast transcript, you would use it as part of your output, right? You want to know who spoke when during the interview or during a podcast. But we do have other customers who use diarization as part of their input to their downstream algorithms. And I've used the same example earlier, but if you're trying to analyze an interview content, you might want to know, when people spoke, and you might use the speaker diarization output to kind of like define your speakers in the audio so that you can feed that to your model after. So yeah, so it ranges it's quite a wide range of domains.
So to follow up, which means that different audio types have different number of participants in the single channel audio, and is your system how sensitive the diarization system to the number of participants in the audio? Would it not matter at all, or is there a kind of upper bound or any kind of guidance for the users to use?
Sensitive, do you mean is sort of accuracy versus number of speaker?
Right.
Yeah, and it definitely, the accuracy of the diarization system gets worse as there are more speaker. But we really try to make our products as easy as possible and so I'm trying very hard not to request from the users to tell us how many speakers are in the audio. And so that's kind of a goal of mine, is to try to tackle diarization in a more generic way. That's why I called it like in the wild, I guess. Yeah, definitely the more speakers, the harder the task is in general. We've looked at that before. We made a little graph looking at it, but off the top of my head, I can't quite say exactly the trend, but it it goes up. The more speakers, the more hair. Yeah.
Yeah, I bet. Yeah.
And I guess I can add that we've looked at trying to give the number of speaker ahead of time, and maybe I'm sure it can be leveraged in a smart way, but in the simpler way of just saying, okay, I think there's 3 speakers here, it didn't really help much or at all in many cases. It seemed like it didn't really help the algorithms make a better decision. So I'm sure, I think we'll talk about features later on. I'm sure there are ways to leverage it properly, but it's not as obvious as just saying there are 2 speakers. The thing too is that sometimes you think there are 2 speakers in an audio, but there are definitely more than 2 speakers, and then you're sending your algorithm on the wrong track.
Great. So I think next question is also aligned with the answers you gave me. So it's about hardship of diarization, like what makes diarization hard. Question number 5. What do you think is the biggest pain point of speakerization in practice? What effort does your team make to build a good production version of speakerization system? Share your thoughts on this.
Yes, we've talked a little bit about it, but one thing I found interesting with speakerization from the product perspective is the customer expectations. And so for ASR, it's kind of a well-known thing that it's difficult. So customers are kind of more understandable when you make mistakes. For some reason, speakerization is kind of a much easier problem for humans than for machines right now anyways. And so I find that customers are very hard to please. And so that's one thing, that's one of the pain points to putting a system in production. The other thing we found difficult was the metrics, I guess is one of the topics of this tutorial, but we found that it's possible to optimize towards the wrong metric sometimes. And so that's deciding on the right metric for your use case is kind of a difficult thing to do for production. And I mentioned that before, but we're really trying to not have user input on anything. So finding a solution that works well in a wide range of scenarios is also difficult.
You know, in my understanding, Rav has its own transcription workforce using your own API to give them much convenient way to reinforce and refine the machine transcriptions to reach the quality human transcriptions using this technology. So how speakerization, how important and critical the speakerization technology can be for human transcribers in your work environment?
Good question. Yeah, it's very important. I don't know. I don't know if it's more important than ASR accuracy. I guess at some point it is once you reach a certain level of accuracy. But We track how fast revers. We call the people who work on our platform revers. We track how fast the revers can output transcript, you know, from the machine transcript, and definitely improving speaker diarization helps them work faster. I mean, it's not too difficult to come up with ideas of how if diarization goes bad, it makes it very hard to edit a transcript, right? Like if you have way too many speakers, or you just find one speaker, you know, then it's a lot of work to fix. So yeah, it's very important. I would definitely this top two things that people talk to us is accuracy and diarization. So yeah, it's top two.
It's great to know. One of the perspectives that we'd like to deliver from this through this tutorial to the audience is that ASR isn't the only core problem in the community, and the diarization is really as challenging as other problems in the community, which is not solved yet, and still there is a big challenge when you're applying this in practice and then encountering those challenges in the wild. So I think the answers and insights should be very much well aligned with our purpose, and yeah, pretty much yeah, we are just copying and pasting your answers to our our tutorials.
Nice.
To deliver that message.
Yeah. I mean, it's true, and the thing about customer expectation and people in general is something that really, like, I found very interesting, and we talked a lot about on the team, because like it's such an easy problem for us to understand, you know, like to understand that there's only 3 speakers in this interview, and but for a machine it's very hard. Like once you got emotions of people, like if I start screaming, you know, or if I don't talk too loud, you know, like it's very difficult to make an accurate system. And I think we're at a point where it's more difficult now than ASR in some way. Like ASR is so good now, right? Yeah, I'm glad you're doing this tutorial.
Yeah, I think as you pointed out, diarization can be perceived quite a much easier problem, because we are quite good. Humans are quite good at diarizing audios, and we actually know easily how many people are talking in the audio. But yeah, it's really challenging problem to machines. Yeah.
Yeah, and we do it live, you know, like so going back to the online diarization, it's like the human ear is very impressive.
Right. Awesome.
So we can move on to question 6, right?
Okay.
Question 6 is about the old school diarization, where people thought that knowing speaker ID would help the ASR accuracy, like way back, like probably 15 years ago. But there's a problem, because nowadays people are using uniform segmentation for speaker diarization in most cases. And then if we're using uniform segmentation, that the segment is not aligned with the word boundaries. So the speaker ID we get from speaker diarization, those are not aligned with the word boundaries. So the problem rises from there. So this question is all about that. Question number 6. Traditionally, a speaker diarization has been considered as a pre-processing for speech recognition, but in practice, it can cause word cuts, thus lots of deletion errors in word error rates, since it doesn't consider word boundaries while using uniform segmentation to get a quality speaker representation. How do you handle this problem in your product systems?
Yeah, it's definitely a problem we've encountered, and we actually are using speaker diarization as a preprocessor, but not as in a super aggressive manner. So one of the ways we're going around this is we only integrated a very conservative VAD in our diarization. Which was one of the reasons was these deletion errors. And then also we don't necessarily choose the same segmentation for diarization between when we present it to the ASR versus to the customer, right? We view these problems as two separate problems. And so in our choice of segmentation presented to the ASR, we do a pretty aggressive smoothing to get rid of some of these problems. And then in our choice of output to the customer for diarization, we choose a different segmentation. And so, yeah, so we still use kind of an old way of using speaker diarization, but we've modified it a little bit with these ideas.
I see.
Awesome.
You do, yeah.
Yeah, let's move to the next question. That is question number 7. Question number seven. Recently, a few metrics other than diarization error rates, so-called DER, are of interest in the community to evaluate diarization systems from different viewpoints, such as world-level DER, as known as WDER. Would you share your own perspective on this trend? And maybe if you are using a different metrics in your systems, would you share that as well?
Yeah, yeah. So we are big fans of WDER. And we also internally use something that we call DER1. So WDER, we're a big fan, especially because it doesn't require any accurate timing in your test set. So I really enjoy that. One of the reasons also is because the output of our diarization system is always accompanied by words. And in fact, it doesn't really matter if the segments are wrong timing-wise, if they contain the right words for the right people, right? So, I mean, it makes a ton of sense to use WDER. I guess one of the drawback is that it has to be used in combination with ASR word error rate sometimes because it doesn't account for deletions and insertions always. But in practice, we found WDER to be really good indication. And then we came up, we came up with this DER1 metric where we decided we don't care about false alarm, actually, because we're using partly using the speaker diarization as an input to ASR. So we don't mind the false alarm. We don't mind identifying silence as speech. And we found that tracking this metric was also more interesting. So it's a misdetection plus speaker confusion divided by total speech time. And we found that was more interesting metric to track in terms of diarization as a preprocessor for ASR. So with these two metrics, we kind of like cover both ways. We cover the preprocessor diarization and the customer-facing diarization. Internally, we're also working on other things like trying to find a metric that would identify the fewest number of edits a rever would have to do to make the diarization, close to perfect. And I have lots of ideas on that. I was planning on writing a little note on it, but basically there are types of diarization errors that are harder to fix, right? if you have like if you say many segments, like speaker one, speaker two, speaker one, speaker two, versus just two blocks, like one is easier to fix than the other, you know, and it would be nice to have like metrics that encompass that. So we have work in progress metrics also, but definitely think that the community can use more metrics, definitely more metrics that are more aligned with real world problems. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very
Awesome.
very interesting that the industry, people in industry, researchers, engineers in industry are already using very similar metric. And then for that, I have a question. Like, do you think using WDR or you said DER1? Mm-hmm. Do you think that error rate is like correlated well with disgruntled customers' response? So that how do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean that's the hardest thing. We're trying to. That's why we're working on these other metrics. I think they are in line with customer feedback, or but they're not perfect either. Definitely, you can definitely have really low WDR and still have customers that think that the transcript looks bad. And so that's definitely #1 challenge. Yeah.
I see. Interesting. I think we just finished question number 7, right?
Yeah. I really enjoyed the conversation so far because you're giving us quite industry perspectives, which we haven't seen much from the previous interviews. So yeah, it's really great.
Good. Glad.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, I'm happy. This is fun. We should do this every year. It's a lot more work for you guys.
Yeah, that's for sure. Yeah, but as I said, it's really also very fun and quite helpful for us to have our understanding much deeper, and it's open up our insight a little bit differently, based on the feedback and information that the interviewees shared. So yeah, really great.
That's good.
Yeah, I think we're done with the interview specific questions. Now we're gonna move on to more of general questions, like high level speakerization related questions. Mm-hmm. And the next question is about the applications of speakerization. Like what kind of applications we could expect in the future. So let me proceed with question number 8. Question number 8. It is well known that the most representative application domains for speakerization are broadcast media, meetings, and telephone conversations, historically. What else do you think can be considered as impactful application domains for speakerization technology in the present? And what could be potential application domains in the future? Please share your thoughts on this.
Well, I'll say the domains you're mentioning are definitely the first things that come to mind today. I think that's the bulk of how speakerization is used today. But I think I mentioned earlier before that what I think Rev is doing is speakerization in the wild. So we do see a lot more range in the scenarios that are used. One thing that I was a bit surprised to see on the industry side is type of recordings that are super long form. Imagine someone who's like, well, a camera in a facility just recording, things all the time, or someone recording themselves like all day long, you know, like, and they want to know when they spoke or when you know, like these are like scenarios, I think, where ASR wasn't necessarily used before, but now is starting to be used, and speaker diarization also. And these environments, have a lot of background noise and long silences and then spontaneous speech, and so it makes it very difficult for speaker diarization. But in the future, I think I like to think that diarization is maybe not good enough yet to like really like have these amazing futuristic use cases. I feel like we're kind of back when speech was in the IVR system, where we were, you know, struggling to recognize yes, please, no, thank you. We're kind of at that level now, and at that time it was difficult to imagine even future use cases for speech recognition. I really feel like in the next few years, diarization will take off, and then there'll be all sorts of amazing uses. One that maybe I can think of is people using Twitch, you know, to stream their games and stuff like that. You know, the booming streaming sector is you know, going to be using speaker diarization, I'm sure, in the future. But we're just like, I feel like we're very close, but not quite there for accuracy wise.
I see.
Yeah.
So I probably I'm ignorant about that gaming application. Could you give more information on the gaming application?
Yeah. I mean, I'm not like a huge gamer either, but I've learned recently that quite a few people. Well, I mean, people want to make their streams more. What's that word? Accessible, you know. So they people are using ASR, like streaming ASR to provide captions of their streams on Twitch. And speaker diarization would be nice to have there to identify who's speaking and split it up.
Oh,
yeah. We just actually last week we had a hackathon at Rev, and one of the people like used our streaming API to provide captions for Twitch. It was pretty cool.
Oh, so it's already supporting Twitch, like the rev.com's API is supporting Twitch?
Not right off the bat, but it's not too difficult to get it to work.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
That's interesting. They already have all kinds of platform to deploy the API, a speech API.
Yeah. I think, as you said, given that we are in the era where we have a lot of multimedia contents available on the web, like YouTube, it's been already a long time, and the TikTok videos, for example, the younger generations are quite used to use those kind of multimedias and upload those content on the cloud to share them with their friends. So yeah, to label, to index those information would be really, really critical and valuable for business providers, and diarization, even for not only for speaker, but also just general audio diarization should be really important. I think it's really interesting to see how those areas are developing in the next few years.
Definitely. I see speaker diarization as a way to organize unstructured data, you know, and I mean, you can imagine, like you said, TikTok, but there's Snapchat and LinkedIn and Facebook. They all have like a ton of media uploaded, and they want to know what's in those media, right? So makes sense. It's gonna become more and more important for sure.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. But Taejin, it's really good for you. So you're sought after candidate in industry.
I wish I could.
We should talk after this interview.
That's great. Great.
I mean, seriously, it's preparing this tutorial is a very, very good learning experience. I'm like accumulating knowledge, lots of knowledge, like what people are like looking for and what they want to build and what's the hardship, like things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's amazing because we tend to not talk to each other, right? Too much between the industry and research. So yeah, this is good.
So can move on to the next question. The next question is the most difficult part of Speakerization. What makes it difficult? Question number nine. What do you think is the most challenging problem yet addressed in the field of Speakerization, either from research perspective or in practice or both? Please share your thoughts on this.
Yeah, well, I'll say then the next frontier, I think, is online diarization, you know, and along with a good recipe to train the models, I find that there are lots of good ideas out there, but they are not necessarily easily implemented. And so a good, accurate online diarization system is the next big thing. But there's a ton of other challenges I found. And one thing is kind of around customer expectation I mentioned earlier, but I'll call it interpretability. So it's very difficult to explain and interpret the result of current diarization system. And so when a customer comes back and says, hey, you know, I don't understand why you only recognize one speaker here, it's very hard to answer, right? In ASR, in the traditional pipelines anyways, it's a lot easier. You can say, oh, this word is out of vocabulary, or like you know, there's some reason that you can kind of come up with. In diarization, it's a lot harder. So I think that would be interesting. And then there are classic things like overlapping speech is interesting. Spontaneous interruptions is very difficult. So when you have a lot of switches between speakers, it's very challenging. We've mentioned the metrics, and so better metrics. And then we found in some cases, the algorithms are learning the wrong characteristics. And so finding ways to overcome this, like not overfitting to the channel environment or the acoustics, and being able to tolerate, and I guess what I would call the intra-speaker changes, so like emotions and things like that, you know. So we have a classic, internally we have a classic audio at Rev that we test on where this person is very, very animated when he talks. And so he'll talk normally, and then after 5 minutes, he's like, ah, and he goes in like this big emotion, you know, and we always recognize two speakers. So challenges like that, I think, are also very interesting to tackle.
Yeah, it's quite practical. Yeah, a lot of challenges in this domain too.
Mm-hmm.
It's not easy problem, I would say.
Yeah, definitely not. And yeah, it's a challenge. It's a challenge to have also behavior that can kind of be that reproduces in general. You know, like you can have audios that sound very similar but will give different results. And when you have that in the industry, it's very hard to explain to your customers.
That's great. Yeah, let's move to the next question, which is the last one. Question number 10. You know, Miguel, traditionally acoustic features have been used, the main input features for speaker diarization systems, right? Sometimes some supra-segmented features also used to supplement the acoustic feature-based systems for speaker diarization. And in this tutorial, we also discussed some systems like a joint modeling or some systems to adopt the diarization outputs as an input for their own speech applications, like an ASR. So in that context, would you share your thoughts on some other potential features that could be used in addition to just normal acoustic features to boost the speaker diarization accuracy?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the accuracy of ASR system has gotten so good recently that it makes a lot of sense to use ASR output as a feature or for diarization. And what's really neat about this, in my opinion, you can include not only the words, but you can include other things in your input. So you can use the word boundaries information, but also the type of text. Like you can figure out if it seems like a dialogue or a monologue or things like that. And you can use maybe pause duration, punctuation, part of speech tagging. All these things are wide open once you start using the ASR output as part of diarization system. And so I could see how this kind of like two-level approach almost, where you can do like first regular features and then include some information about the ASR. There's other type of information I'm interested in too. There's video sources. So some sort of like dual approach has been very interesting in the past. I've read a few articles on that. And then integrating this idea of known speaker database. So this may be more of an industry thing, but there are definitely customers that repeatedly use your product, and they want to say, look, you understand my voice already. You should be using that as part of your diarization system. And so building up that kind of like that kind of system that can take speaker information as part of it would be very interesting.
Great, awesome. I think we covered the questions, all the questions. Very timely.
Yeah.
Nice.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, it's a pleasure,
awesome.
for sure.
Yeah. How do you feel about this? Do you have any feedback on this approach?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of fun for me. It's I think it works well. I wish we could do it in person, but
yeah,
this is the next best thing. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I'm excited to see the result too. Of like how are you gonna combine everything? So,
right, that's a big homework for us. how we can finally make a final product from a lot of great resources that we have at the moment.
Mm-hmm. I'll plug an application that I know is called Descript. Do you know Descript?
Descript?
Descript. I've heard of that. They're actually providing some benchmark results for ASR.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and their app is pretty cool to edit video, because you can upload your video and then it syncs, with the text, and then you can cut and paste using the text. You're editing your video using text, right? Because the words are aligned with the timing of the videos. So if you cut and paste, you're actually cutting and pasting the video. It's quite cool.
I see. That's why they're very much interested in using ASR for their own products.
Yeah. They need timing for words and stuff like that. But you can peek at it. It's a pretty cool product.
Is that a video editing software?
Yeah, basically it's video editing's online, but you're editing the video using words in the transcript, right?
Oh, I see.
So you could just like copy paste my answer to question 4, and it would also just cut and paste the video portion, right? And you can move it, you can reorganize things.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool.
So
Teji, we should add this one in our tutorial to show one of the examples in industry.
Do they have a homepage? I mean, of course they have one.
The scripts.
Oh, I see. Like it's.
Oh,
Yeah.
I don't know how to say the word actually. Descript or descript?
Yeah, that script. DE and DS script.
Like description or something. But,
yeah.
Aside from the speakerization and the things we discussed, like what does Rev.com have any other business model other than ASR and speakerization? Yeah,
so Rev in general, that was one thing I wanted to say in question one, but like, oh no, it's a different thing that I wanted to share with you guys. But yeah, Rev in general, our mission is providing work at home jobs using AI, so we're tackling things audio based because it's kind of the most obvious thing. So we do transcription, we do subtitles, and we do captions. We used to do translation, but we've hit pause on that. But all those kind of like things that are audio based, and then we have people that work from home and that log in. It's kind of an Uber for transcription, if you will, so then those are the main things. Yeah. So primarily, I would say Rev.com's in the past, anyways. Primarily, it's a human transcription business. Not in the past, even now, and the ASR part of it is just a small part of it, and the real benefit for us to develop our own is that we internally use it, right, to help our humans to make them more productive, and so we have that advantage of using our own API and getting feedback from our revers.
So you provide the ASR transcript as a first pass output to human annotators? Is that what you guys are doing?
In some cases, yes. Mm-hmm.
Oh,
yeah. So we have checks and balances. Like I can say, for example, because you guys are research oriented, that you have to be careful if you feed your ASR output and then you use the same thing to train your ASR after, right? So we make sure we don't do that sort of thing. But yeah, in general, we provide a first draft. And the revers have a choice to, start from scratch anyways, or, if it's good enough, they'll start from it. But we've seen like a boost in productivity that's definitely worth it, people are loving it.
Yeah, I once made YouTube clips and I made subtitles for it, and then the automatic transcription helped me a lot because it provided all the timestamps, and all I need to do is just revise some of the wrongly recognized words. So I think giving up, even if it has of course it has some errors, but I think it gives a huge leg up for human annotators.
Yeah.
I mean, in my personal opinion, yeah.
For sure, and I mean, for the majority of audios, we get pretty clean audios, like our interview right now and things like that. And I mean, our ASR is super accurate. I mean, I'm throwing myself flowers, but it's kind of amazing. It's quite usable, right? So if you only have to fix, 5% of errors or whatever, it's almost nothing, right? Especially considering humans will also make mistakes, right? So even a human is not perfect.
So if the annotators, they also want to make more money, and company also wants to make more money, and if the ASR transcription, the first pass result can expedite the process, and it's win-win situation for both of them, right?
Yeah. That's how we see it for sure. I mean, we've made sure that we don't profit from the AI other than making turnaround time faster, right? So we still pay we don't pay people by the time they take to work on an audio or a script. We pay them by the length of the audio, right? So I mean, if I guess you know, the more accurate our transcript is, the better their pay is, in fact, because they have to work less on
faster. Yeah.
And so yeah, I think like I don't have numbers at hand, but the productivity has increased a ton, and people are making more money on our service, so it's nice. Yeah.
I guess there should be, I mean, that'd be really great for transcribers to have very accurate transcriptions from machine, which is really helpful for them to reduce the entire amount of the time to work on the refinement of the transcriptions. But there should be some point like where ASL could make their life much harder, right? Because of just a loud performance. It's really, really hard for them to correct rather than just starting from the scratch. So do you have any of the estimate of what's that, I mean, in terms of water rate, for example, if it's less than a certain point of water rate, the machine transcription should be helpful. But other than that, above,
yeah,
it's hard.
I mean, we need help to look at all these things. If you know people to join my team, but there's all sorts of stuff we could look at. That's what's so interesting with our platform is we could definitely answer that question. I don't know exactly the word error rate, but we do have mechanism in place where it's mostly based. It's unsupervised, right? So it's mostly based on confidence level and how confident we are that the transcript is accurate. And if there's a certain threshold where you say, I won't even present this transcript because it's
wow, that's
terrible.
Smart. That's right? Great. That's great.
But after the fact, like once people have written the transcript, we could look at the word error rate and see, like, we could do all sorts of analysis to know, like, like what's the quality required before it's useful or not useful. Yeah, that would be super interesting.
Great. So in that regard, do you also conduct some kind of benchmarking testing internally to compare your ASL quality with other companies? And you're also providing open public, I mean, not public, but API, right, for developers or customers to directly use your endpoints. And probably you guys also have some kind of understanding of how the other competitors are working in that domain, like a Google Speech API, things like that. In terms of many other aspects, including I mean, the word error rate, the feature types and things like that. Do you have such information?
Yeah, we do. We track that stuff for sure. So we have built a bunch of internal tests that we run on a monthly basis to compare and track the accuracy. And I mean, we seriously track about 4 or 5 people, I forget. And we're always, I mean, on our tests, we're always better than them. It depends on the domain. Sometimes it's very close. Sometimes it's not even close. But in general, we come out on top. But yeah, there are domains where the competition is high. One of our focus right now is expanding to other languages. So because that's definitely one of our drawback is we've really focused on English because we wanted to make an amazing product. And I feel like now is the right time to expand. So that's something where we would lose against other competitors, I guess, because of our focus. But yeah, in terms of accuracy, I'm super proud. I mean, I'm actually just writing an article that I'll post on our blog next week about accuracy in the podcast domain. Cool. And I mean, the results are fantastic.
Great. Cool.
So you made a contract with some kind of podcast platforms, for example, like Google Podcast. What kind of, how does the contract work? Of the podcast?
Oh, I don't know the details there. Actually, that would be someone else at Rev probably that would know. But we have customers that are in the podcast world for
providers,
sure.
Like the content providers.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and they I don't know if they're pay-as-you-go customers or if they have a contract. I'm not quite sure. Yeah. But like Q was saying, we have the API is pretty much open to people. Like, as I think there's even like a free tier where you can kind of use it a little bit for free, and then you know, you can just pay as you go. So it's pretty easy. So some customers just use us that way.
Mm-hmm.
I see.
It's great. Regarding just one last question, regarding the benchmark, do you know if I mean, we are actually in the tutorial, we'd like to share some information like that, like not performance, but for example, AWS API and Google API, what kind of features are available and how they can be compared with other service providers in the same market. And do you know any kind of publicly available information like that, so that we can just pull out for us for this tutorial?
Like almost a table of features with
kind of features, but yeah, it's kind of just tabular information.
Right. I don't know. I mean, I think internally we've done it, but I don't know if it's public information. I don't know of any off the top of my head. I mean, most of these API, I think you could figure it out by looking at their websites, but it's kind of tedious.
Yeah, and we're not sure if it is like perfectly legal to like put up that table and like say that, oh, this is what it is, and like you guys can refer to this table. And probably one company would say, oh, WTF, like we provide more than this, and you guys are providing false information.
Yeah,
so I'm kind of concerned about that scenario.
It's a slippery slope, you know, like in general, I'm always worried even to write, even on our blog, you know, like comparisons and stuff like that. It's like, it's pretty touchy. Yeah. So I think your gut is probably right there. It's like, it's hard to do it without making some people frown. For sure.
Yeah, we need to think about that.
Yeah. I guess you could ask like the people that are participating in the tutorial, but maybe they would be willing to share a list or something. But
I see. Great.
Cool. Miguel, do you want us to show any kind of video clips or any promoting information materials for Rev.com in the tutorials, so that we can share some information to the audience? Anything on your mind?
In what I would love, I mean, I would love to get the word out a little bit. So what kind of material? Like we have promotional material, but I was thinking of writing a blog post about speakerization.
Yeah, that'd be also great.
So I could, maybe you could take some, well, I actually shared the document with you, right? Like that document during the summer.
Yeah, but you said that don't share that yet.
Yeah, I need, speaking of legal, you know, I need to have like all the right people look at it and decide what we can share. But maybe that's something we could share. And I mean, definitely like a link, or like maybe I have some like interesting one pager of what Rev does, like to your point of like having a table with features and stuff. We have some cool little material that we usually give to customers and stuff. I could give you that too.
Okay,
yeah.
That'd be great. That'd be awesome. Yeah. So maybe that could be utilized as our materials to show how industry can use this technology for their own products, and how they can be used hours by hours and by users, things like that.
Yeah. That's a good idea, actually. Yeah, it's would be nice. It's funny because I forget like how I'm like so in the industry that I forget that people don't see that kind of stuff on the other end, right? So it's interesting.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'll talk to the marketing team and see what they have, and like I can send you guys some ideas, and we can let me know what you want to use.
Yeah, that'd be great. Awesome.
Great.
Cool.
Thank you. I think it's a good time to stop the recording.